Hello everyone, how are you all doing? So today we are going to learn about containerization in Azure Cloud. Can you quickly let me know what are the different container solutions available in Azure Cloud as per your knowledge? So there is a type ECS and Fargate. So they are AWS ones. ECS is a AWS technology. We will have AWS sessions coming up, but today it is Azure. And I had actually asked you to go through the prerequisite video, which is Containers 101 session. In case if you have missed it, it is still fine. We'll be having a live quiz where I'll be asking a lot of questions related to the video. And in case if you have any doubts or queries, I'll be helping you with them so that you'll be ready for the session. I'll be also explaining a few very important topics during the live quiz so that you will be more thorough about those core concepts before actually getting started with containerization on Azure Cloud. So there are chats saying Azure Kubernetes service. Okay. Azure Container Instances. Yes. How many of you know about Kubernetes? We are not going to cover Kubernetes today. So Kubernetes itself is a bigger topic. We will have Azure Kubernetes service and then related sessions later, and for which the prerequisite video will be Kubernetes 101. Some of the concepts from Kubernetes, such as the concept of pods and all, could be used here. When you consider even the simplest Azure container solution, Azure Container Instances, it picks up a few things even from the Kubernetes world, especially from the idea of pods. So we'll discuss them. Similar to the Kubernetes one, Azure has created something for container orchestration without worrying about a lot of the complexities with AKS. So can somebody tell the name of that service? So Azure has something called as Azure Container Apps. It's a serverless offering without lot of complexities. Can be used to work with containers and especially microservices. How many of you know about these terms such as microservices, containerization, and all? Because if you have participants who are not aware about any of these terms that I say, we can have more prerequisite sessions. So we will start with a quiz that we will cover based on all the topics that we have discussed within the Containers 101 session, so that it is an opportunity for people who have gone through it to attend and get prizes. How many of you are new to our live quiz? So if you are new to quiz, so we use a product called Poll Everywhere. You can install it on your mobile phone or tablet, or you can even attend the quiz from your computer. Most people prefer to install the app called Poll Everywhere on your phone and then see how things are happening on the screen and then answer fast on the mobile. And if you are lazy to install the software, you can always go through the URL from a browser. So it is your choice. But browser, there could be some delays, and your score is not only dependent on your correct answer, but also how fast you answer. Once you start, it will ask for the host username or the username that I host these quizzes, which is QUI today. You can just type QUI. If you are doing it from the browser, what you can do is you can just go to the URL pollev.com/QUI. So this is not just a quiz, but this is a quiz and talk program where you can ask all of your doubts. And I'll be explaining the concepts that were covered in the previous sessions also. What is the first step in working with the traditional IT infrastructure? Configure load balancers, buy a server, install applications, patch the operating system. And in case if you are a Forum CA student, your module completion will be only marked based on your quiz attendance. So if you have missed queues, then you will have to attend another live queues for the same module. By a server, very simple one. If you see here, even if many people have answered correctly, because we had only one question, right? The first 8 or 7 has answered it correctly, but based on how fast you respond, the scores will be different. Okay, what is required to keep the server's operating system secure and functional? Installing applications, configuring dependencies, regular patching, adding more servers. And how many of you remember about the different kinds of abstractions like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, serverless, etc.? Yes, regular patching. So when you go from one abstraction to another, some of these things are abstracted away from us. For example, when you go from infrastructure as a service to platform as a service, the regular patching is no more your responsibility, but your cloud providers. What do you need to install after setting up the operating system on a server? These are all simple warm-up questions, and then we will go to a little more interesting ones. So while you go through these questions, you should understand the pain of doing these things manually. Okay, again, majority are correct. What is one primary advantage of server virtualization? What advantage does server virtualization brings to the bare metal systems? Bare metal means imagine that you have a computer where you have one operating system and then you are working on it. Maybe even a big corporate data center machine is also doing the same. So what advantage does server virtualization bring? Yes, it allows one host machine to contain multiple virtual machines. So what software component is responsible for managing virtual machines? So somebody has to manage multiple virtual machines on a single physical host machine, right? So these things are not specific to Azure Cloud or AWS Cloud, but eventually, if you want to become a cloud architect, then you will need to know all of those things. Yes, hypervisor. Which type of hypervisor runs directly on bare metal machine without a base operating system? So what was the question? Which type of hypervisor runs directly on bare metal without a base operating system? None of you answered correctly. So there are two types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 means it runs directly on top of bare metal machine. So that is the kind of virtualization that is being utilized on a cloud. So basically, your virtual machines are running on a physical machine. And then you also have a type 2 where you will be actually installing a virtual machine on top of another operating system, maybe for testing purposes, maybe for development purposes. For example, installing a Linux VM on top of Windows VM or Windows VM on top of Mac, etc., etc. Everybody are wrong there. What is the key characteristic of type 2 hypervisor? I think I already told the answer, so I am assuming everybody will be answering it correctly this time. And do not worry if you are not part of the top 10. It can change any time and then you can come to top 10. So there are a lot of questions. So you just have to be patient enough and then you can definitely come to top 10. Okay, it runs on top of another operating system. I answered it for you earlier. Why is a type 1 hypervisor considered the backbone of cloud computing? Okay, so it supports resource sharing with multiple VMs. Okay, so now I think We are slowly moving to containers. What is a primary characteristic of containers compared to virtual machines? Okay, containers are a lightweight alternative to virtual machine. What do virtual machines include that containers do not? A complete operating system with its own kernel. Which of the following manages containers? So these are important questions or concepts. So understanding of what a container engine is, what all things are involved, how are applications generally started in containers, which statement best describes the architecture of containers. Okay, majority are correct. Okay, so now comes little more important topics. What are the three core components of a container? So three core concepts you learned from the session, right? So can you type the three core concepts? One is already shown here, the image. What are the other two? From containers 101, you just learned these things. But today we'll be actually seeing these things in practice. So tell me, what are the other two? Okay, so we'll come to that. For now, you can answer this question. Imagine you have a car. So the car would have some kind of a blueprint or template initially, and from that, the car is being made, right? You cannot drive that blueprint, but you can drive your car. That running instance of an image is the actual container. Okay, so you have image, you have container, and you have a container registry. These are the three core components of any container technology. So we'll see them live with Azure examples. So what is the purpose of a container registry? Okay, to store and distribute container images. There can be public ones that are available for everybody to access, like the Docker Hub. And within Azure Cloud, today we will learn Azure has a similar container registry called Azure Container Registry, where you can have public repositories as well as private ones. So which of the one is a popular container registry? Okay, it was a little bit tricky. A popular, it could be anything. Most popular, it will be Docker Hub mostly. What is the difference between a container and a container image? Okay, a container is the runtime instance created from a container image. Okay, a container is not a static file. The image is the static file, and container is the actual running runtime instance. And that image we store and distribute using container registry. Once we see the labs today, it will be more clear. How do containers address the work on my system problem? How many of you have heard about this thing called work on my system? So when I started my career long time back, I was a developer. I started as a developer. So we develop code and then we test it in our environment and then give to QA. QA test it in their environment. They will say, okay, it is not working on my environment. Then we will say it is working on our environment. And how does container solve all these things? So there has been container technologies even before Docker and after Docker, but Docker is one of the most popular one. In their initial talks and all, they used to mostly focus on works on my system problem. So the container packages all of your applications and dependencies together into a single unit, so that environment itself is being moved from QA to the next environment and from there to next environment. So you cannot say that it is not working on my environment, because the environment itself with all the applications and the dependencies are moving from one place to another. Which of the following is a popular container solution? Choose two options. This is from that video. Okay, Docker and Rancy. Which of the following is a popular container solution again? One of these is very important, because many people are now stopping to use Docker and starting to use this one. So can you name that one before we go to the next screen? Oh, looks like a team has not enabled the answer multiple option. Answer any of the correct ones and then still get points in that case. So tell me, answer to my question is from one of these two, which has green ticks. So which one do you think is currently replacing Docker in products such as Red Hat, Kubernetes, etc.? Okay, good. It is Podman. Which of the following is a popular container solution again? Majority have answered it correctly. Same question, so you have to choose any one of the two correct answers. LXC, systemd and spawn. So majority are correct. Which of the following is a popular container solution? Okay, it is Core OS and then Windows Server containers. Okay, Docker and Hyper-V containers. Okay, what is the primary purpose of container orchestration? So we are moving from containers to container orchestration. So what do you mean by orchestration? So there is a question, as you said, you will go through practical session on containers. Any issue for who haven't gone through containers 101? So this quiz is also for people who haven't gone through containers 101. So as long as you understand everything from this quiz, it is more than enough. And if you don't understand, just stop me and ask, and I will explain those things again. So by the end of the quiz, you'll be ready for the practical sessions. Okay, manage and orchestrate containers efficiently. So which of the following is an important task of a container orchestration tool? So also think about some container orchestration tools that are available in the market. Okay, automated rollouts and rollbacks. How does container orchestration handle scaling? And how many of you do not remember what scaling is, what horizontal scaling is, what vertical scaling is, what scale out is, what scale up is, scale down is? It's a generic concept that we learned in the cloud computing fundamentals videos. It is also part of the YouTube fundamentals playlist in CloudRig's channel. Which of the following is one of the most popular container orchestration tools? You can select the most popular one. Yes, I think this might be the first time 100% of people are answering it correctly. Yeah, that shows the popularity of Kubernetes. Which container orchestration technology is specific to Docker? Docker Swarm. Which of the following are examples of managed container orchestration platforms? Okay, Azure Kubernetes Service, Red Hat OpenShift, Google GKE. Which cloud provider offers a managed Kubernetes service called EKS? Okay, it is Amazon. So let me share my Azure portal screen and then let us get started. So now everybody are clear about what a container image is, what a container is, what is container orchestration, what is a container registry, all of these things, right? The first step is, or the simplest solution within Azure Cloud for containers is Azure Container Instance. I've detailed apps for these. I'll go through it after the session. Okay, you can just search for Azure Container Instance or just Container Instances. You can click on create. So as always, with any service, you'll have to select subscription, resource group, and then you can provide a name. How many of you have heard about this server called Nginx? So this is a very popular web server. There are easily available images on Azure Cloud as well as in public Docker repositories. If you want to test out a web application, this is a very common thing to use. You don't have to learn much about it, but if you have any specific doubts, let me know and I'll help you out. Region availability zone will not use any, and SKU we will go with standard. See here, so we have different options here. We can either use one of the quick start images provided by Azure Cloud, or you can use the Azure Container Registry, or you can use any other registry such as Docker Hub. Okay, so quick start images, so they are providing Nginx. Networking, we can decide, okay, whether it should be for the public or private. We'll go with public. So if you want to give a DNS name, okay, we'll in maybe Nginx one. What is the scope of use, whether it should be tenant or subscription or resource group. So let us keep a resource group for now. And then monitoring. So we have a whole module for monitoring, which is module 11, and then we will come back. So advanced, restart this on failure, always, never. So we'll go with on failure, which is the default, and key management. You can use Microsoft managed keys, which is the easiest option, or you can use customer managed keys also. And then you can go with review and create. If you want, you can add tags also. Okay, validation is passed, and then you can click on create. So one concept I had not discussed in that queues. So many of you have heard about this thing called cold start with respect to containers. How many of you have heard about serverless? So in serverless, compared to virtual machines, what is the primary difference? So one, you are not managing servers, right? So you are not managing servers on your own. It is managed by your cloud provider. So yeah, less or no code is from a development time perspective. Function as a service is an example. Logic apps is an example. One more thing is about cost. So for a virtual machine, if you are running a virtual machine, you'll be paying for the time that virtual machine is up and running, irrespective of when you are actually using it. But with serverless, you only pay when you actually use it. And that is made mostly possible through containers, because whenever a request comes after a delay, a container is suddenly started. And then it will be running for some time. And then during that time, if other requests come, it will be immediately processed. Again, after some time, if no requests are there, it will again shut down. So that first request, when the container is shut down, it is called a cold start. So basically, it will have little bit of delay. And there are best practices and all to avoid cold start and all. So let us go to resource. So if you copy this and let us try to run it. Okay, so you see, welcome to Nginx. And similarly, you can copy the IP address and run. Okay, so here we have in the configured HTTPS. So we'll have to run without HTTPS. It is working. But when we go to Azure Apps, even that part is taken care. So we will see later. You can create a container registry. You can go to container registries. So similar to how you have Docker Hub, you can create your own. This name has to be unique in this namespace. Let us call it forum CA here, and then East US pricing plan. Let's keep it standard. So some of the advanced features like private access and all are only available with the premium. So I just wanted to show you that. Okay, the difference between a standard and a premium. Basic is just less resources. Feature wise, it is same as standard. And encryption, you can only use a Microsoft managed ones. A customer managed ones, you need premium. Review and create. Okay, validation pass, you can create. Somebody else is using that name. Azure should have told me earlier. It is fine because I had already created another registry with the same process that we followed. And then I have taken all the exact steps I've used and kept it in the lab document. If you go here, the name is just Buddy. So this is unique across the globe, right? How many of you are aware about Kubernetes? How many of you have at least watched the Kubernetes 101 session or at least have some idea about Kubernetes, pods? What is a pod in Kubernetes? Okay, pod is the smallest unit in Kubernetes and it is a group of containers that work together to run an application, I assume. Good. In most of the cases, a pod will only have one container. Even though it supports multiple containers, in most cases, it will be one container. Imagine that I have one container and I need to scale that application. I need 3 or 4 containers. Would I be creating those 3 or 4 containers in the same pod or different pod? Pod is the smallest unit of scale in Kubernetes. So if you want to scale, you will scale the pod, not scale the containers. You cannot scale within a pod, which means you cannot add more containers within a pod for the purpose of scaling. But then why would you add more containers to a pod? So all of these things are relevant to our discussion about containers also. So that is why I'm asking. And then I thought you will get some idea about Kubernetes also. Give me any use case where a pod should have more than one container. I've already answered that it is not for scale. So there is a popular architectural pattern called as sidecar pattern. How many of you have heard about it? So sidecar means you have one application and there are some other application that needs to be alongside this application. So basically sidecar means something to support that primary functionality. And one common functionality is logging. One container for the primary web app and one container for logging. So these two can be together. So when it scales, both of these two will be replicated. So the unit of scale, unit of replication is pod. And they'll be making use of the same host also. Okay, so sidecar pattern. And similarly, if you consider our Azure container instances, so here, what did we create? Did we create a container or a group of containers? So when we created container instances, an instance of container instances service, did we create a container or a group of containers? So whenever you create a container instance, it actually creates a group of containers called as container group. But in this case, that group only has one container. So that is the idea of container groups. If you see containers here, you can have multiple containers here in a single container instance. But there is a challenge. As of now, Azure has not created an option within the portal. So you'll have to do it either using ARM templates or a YAML configuration file, etc., etc. You understood what is an container instance, what is a container group, what is a container registry, and then you also have the serverless one, container apps. So here you can go to a container app and select a subscription and then an app name. So here you have more functionality. It is not just an image. You can also integrate it with your build and deploy pipeline. We'll go with EastUS as we were using it mostly. Click on next. So here the name is automatically populated from first page. So subscription is not same as the first page. So you have to give it again. Okay, and then select the right registry and select the right image, tag. Ingress means some request coming in. So since we have deployed a web app, we will need access. So let us keep it simple and it will be a HTTP request. Transport will keep auto. And one thing I think we missed, okay, generic. So here the development stack, I have mentioned generic for our experiment, but you can also specifically mention either Java or .NET. Okay, so all of these things I have explained in the lab again. And this session affinity concept, how many of you know about this session affinity concept? So tell me, is session affinity good or bad? Let me review and create, and then I don't know whether it will take time. Session affinity, as per current best practices, it is not good. But again, the answer could be depends. In the cloud computing fundamentals, we learned about scalability. So session affinity means, okay, if you have 3 servers, you are having a session. Okay, so in that session, your first request went to server A, and it is also called as sticky sessions. So sticky sessions means the next request will go to the first server. Always it will go to the first server. So the advantage is you can cache some data within those servers. But the disadvantage is auto scaling will not work properly. So imagine that there is no session affinity and you are not storing any data within those individual servers, but they are stored somewhere outside, like a external cache. So Redis cache is a common option. In that case, if this server is down, you can just create another server and then request can go to that. If in your session, if you are utilizing resources more, then when somebody else comes, their resources can be diverted to another system that is not having enough capacity. So load balancer will have lot of flexibility. But if sticky sessions are enabled, then load balancer, it will only have one option to redirect you always to one system. So in general, do not rely on sticky sessions. Okay, see here we have an application URL and we can try to run it. You have got a secure connection automatically. So here it is not secure. You have to manually do that. It abstracts away a lot of things. So you don't have to worry about a lot of things, but you still get the scalability and most of the benefits of Kubernetes. So we saw how to create a container instance. So this is lab for the same. So I have taken extensive screenshots, explained everything. We saw all of these things, right? So creating a container instance, selecting quick start images. So all of these things we saw, including the output. And then I have explained those things here. It's a decent note that you can go through about the sidecar pattern and container group. Also the different options and all. I've included a summary of important container related services in Azure. So Azure Container Instances, we saw web app for containers. So we saw web apps in app services session. So there we selected code, right, in our demos, but there also you can select a container. And Azure Container Apps we saw today. Azure Container Registry we saw today. Functions can be used with container support, Azure Kubernetes Service, Azure Red Hat OpenShift, Azure Service Fabric, bare metal instances. To understand these terms, you should first understand what is container, what is bare metal, what is virtualization. So that is why I made that containers 101 session as a prerequisite. Container registry also we saw today. You can go to a container registries, you can create whatever body you saw there. Everything is captured here so that we can follow later. But this is something that we have not seen. Setting up a Docker on a Linux VM. So this is just one of the options to push an image. You can log into Azure portal and then connect to VM. So I'm using Bastion. So how many of you remember Bastion from the virtual machine sessions? You might touch upon again in networking. So it is a very easy way to connect, right? So here, deploying Bastion as we saw in the virtual machine session, it will take a lot of time. You can set up Docker. Yeah, Docker needs a lot of permissions and all. So you can just go as a root user so that you will not have to put sudo always. Update as a good practice. If you're not a root user, you'll have to add sudo to it. Apt install docker.io -y. It will install Docker for you. Just check the version. And then you can start Docker. And then maybe if you are planning to use that system regularly, you can set it as a startup item so that every time it boots, it will start automatically. You have to install Azure CLI. There are labs in module 3 that focuses specifically on CLI. And after that, you'll have to log into your Azure account. So basically, you'll have to type AZ login, and then it will give you this code. You'll have to, from any browser, go to this URL, HTTPS device login, and then enter this code. And once you enter, it will come back and it will ask for you to select a subscription, and then you are logged in. Then you can run all of your commands and pushing a hello world image. Since the VM didn't had any images, so we can just pull something. So this is something that Microsoft provides for demos and all. So you can just use that. It is a hello world command line app. And once you have that, so you have to do this ACR login. So basically, you are authorizing Docker to work with your registry. And once the login is succeeded, then you can tag. So when we created Azure Container Apps and all, it asks for image name, tag, and version and all those things, right? So, and then this login server, where will you get this login server? Let me quickly go back to the portal. If you go to your container registry, you will see this login server. Just copy paste. It will be different for you. You just log in and you just tag that image and you just push it. Docker push, and it will create. If you go to your registry, you'll be able to see that. You can come back, and then here also you can use this command ACR repository list to list. We are utilizing the one we uploaded to the registry and then running it. It is just a hello world app. So hello from Docker. So this is just a Microsoft provided one. And then I have created one more lab with a non-Microsoft provided one. Most of the steps, initial steps are same. By default, if you do not specify any server, it will be from the Docker Hub. So use a Docker pull Nginx without any registry name or anything. It will pull from the Docker Hub. So this is the publicly available one. Other steps are same. Tagging is same and pushing is same. The only difference is here we are having a web application. As I have mentioned, you have to open port 80 when you create the virtual machine to get requests from internet. And another difference will be when you run, you just mention detach mode and then port mapping. So web server is not going to run once and then stop, right? So here this is continuously running, and to avoid blocking the screen, so you put -d, it is a detach mode, and then -p, you map the internal port with the external port. After that, you can go to browser and then see it. Actually, in the lab, I have used this image for the container apps demo. You can see that. So any doubts or queries or anything. So let me stop sharing. So anybody, any doubts, even if it is not related to today's session, it is perfectly fine. I stay back after every session so that if you have any doubts from previous classes also, you can ask me. And if you are part of the Forum CA group or the Keva group, you can just ask there also. Assuming there are no more questions, bye bye for now, and see you all in next class.